My name is Annika Lee, and I am the Membership and Communications Coordinator at the Digital Technology Supercluster, and I am pleased to welcome you all to our very first Digital Demo Day event. Before we get started, we respectfully acknowledge that in Canada, we live, work, and learn on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral land of Indigenous people. As myself and much of the Supercluster team are based in Vancouver, British Columbia, we are gathered here virtually on the traditional ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and we encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are joining us from. Now, I would like to introduce our co-founder and COO, Bill Tam.
Thanks very much, Annika. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Digital Demo Day. Really thanks to all of you who are part of our Supercluster community. We have an incredible amount of momentum in our collective efforts over the past year. There have been exciting projects in digital health, sustainability and natural resources, our response to COVID-19, and digital transformation of industry, which is so vital to the economic future for Canada. We now have an investment portfolio that's valued at more than $300 million that contains more than 80 Supercluster projects and more than 350 organizations that are part of those projects. Indeed, our collaboration model is working. And so we have a number of projects that are nearing the completion of their development journey. And that's really what has spawned the idea to launch this Digital Demo Days series. Digital Demo Days, we hope, will provide an opportunity for our project teams to showcase the outcomes and impacts of their projects, some learnings and capabilities that they've been able to uncover. This also provides an opportunity to attract new organizations who might seek to adopt the solution or perhaps partner to extend this capability. We see this as really a virtual networking session. And at the end of each demo day, what we'd like to be able to do is provide you with an opportunity to share a 1-minute update from your organization to the rest of the community in a segment that we'll call Rapid Fire. So why don't we start by getting to know the audience a little bit. So let's get a sense of who's with us today. And I'm going to ask for a couple of poll questions. All right, here's the first question. How are you involved with our Supercluster? And if you can click the box that's appropriate to you and just hit submit, we're only going to go through 2 questions. Okay, and our colleagues at Inventor are tabulating that question, and here's the answer. Looks like more than half of our audience are already members or associates. There's a good third of the audience which are a part of our broader ecosystem and community, and we've got some new faces, which is terrific. It's a chance for us to share a bit more about what's going on in the Supercluster community. So thanks for answering that question. Okay, and then the other question is, what interested you in joining us today? Just to give us and the project teams a sense of who's in the audience. Was it to learn, to partner with a project, or as a potential customer? And our friends at Inventor are just tabulating the results. Oh, it looks like, a good 2/3 of us are here just to learn. And there's opportunities to partner with this project by 1/3 of our audience. So thanks very much for answering those questions. Hopefully it will give Handol, Cyrus, and Mike a better sense of who's in the audience and deliver their presentations accordingly. So today you're going to hear from 2 project teams. First, you're going to hear from Handol Kim, who's the project executive on the Raven2 project that's led by Variational AI, and it's done in collaboration with Admare and the University of British Columbia. And following Handol, you'll hear from Cyrus and Mike, co-founders of Spectrum, and the project lead for the Global Clinical Network for Infectious Disease platform. It's a collaboration that includes quite a number of organizations, including Unity, Massive Change Network, Alberta Health Authority, Saskatchewan Health Authority. It includes Vitality, Fraser Health, and you'll see the full listing on our website. Both projects are a result of the COVID-19 program that we launched last year. It's a clear illustration of our community's resilience and our ability to rise to the challenge associated with COVID-19. So each project will first of all give a short presentation, and where they're able to, we'll provide a bit of a demo of the capabilities. And this will be followed by a Q&A period for the project teams. And I would invite you all to participate in that Q&A session. You can type in your questions in the chat or just signal to me, and I'll ask for Annika's help to moderate some of the questions that will come across. In the end, we're going to run this for about an hour and look forward to your comments and feedback. So first of all, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Handol Kim. And Handol is going to share with us how Raven2 is harnessing AI to find new COVID-19 drugs and help to remediate some of the health challenges that we see before us. So over to you, Handol.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's always a pleasure to participate in the Supercluster, and also for you, Asian James Bond wearing the tuxedo. It's always a pleasure to see you so gussied up this morning. So thank you very much. Can people see my screen?
All clear, Handol.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I'll get into it. Our project is called Raven2. It's an AI platform for novel drug discovery, specifically for COVID-19. As Bill said, the project objective was under the COVID-19 call, and the objective is very simple. It's to discover and commercialize a novel small molecule therapeutic targeting SARS-CoV-2. So for people who may not be as aware of drug discovery and life sciences in general, because we do have a very strong digital contingent here, we are a small molecule versus a biologic. So a small molecule is a very small, generally you'd consider it a pill, versus a biologic, which might be an antibody. Chemically, a small molecule is maybe 100 or so atoms, whereas a biologic might be hundreds of thousands. And we have great companies in Vancouver and in Canada working in the biologics area, whether it's through antibodies like AbCellera and Zymeworks, various other companies. We are taking a small molecule approach, and 90% of the drugs that are available today are small molecule. But it should be noted that most of the big blockbusters, moneymakers, are biologics, but we are taking a small molecule path because that is what we specialize in. We're generating a therapeutic versus a vaccine. So we don't do vaccines. Vaccines are great, and I can't wait to get one in my arm, and I hope that everyone else will as well. A therapeutic is basically, you take a vaccine so you don't get the disease. A therapeutic is what you take once you've got the disease. And the issue right now is that we don't really have a small molecule therapeutic for COVID-19. And with case loads rising and various variants of concern, we feel that there is still a need. When we embarked on the project, there were only a few thousand people, tens of thousands of people in Canada who had COVID-19. Fast forward to now, and it's just absolutely crazy in terms of the impact. So we do see a need there. The difficulty with this is that the average cost to develop a drug today is about 2.6 billion US, and it takes about on the average of 12 years. So in order to give you a sort of an indication of the ambition of the project, Raven2 is trying to get to an optimized lead or something in early preclinical development on a budget of $1.9 million and within 1 year. And I'm very happy to be joined by our consortium members, folks from Admare. Charles and Lana and Claudia are here, as well as at UBC, the Vancouver Prostate Center, we have Eric LeBlanc, who's the project manager there. So the origin story, because every good Marvel movie needs an origin story, we started off by trying to do the fastest and the quickest thing possible. And that was back in April, where we had Raven and Raven1, because there's a Raven2. And what we did was we looked at repurposing existing drugs that were already approved, because we felt that could give us the fastest path towards an effective therapeutic. We ran our AI and we looked through the approved drugs, and none of them really work. And as we all know, lots of drugs have fallen by the wayside that had early promise, whether it's hydroxychloroquine or Ativan or various other drugs, but only remdesivir has been an approved drug, and that's emergency use authorization only. We worked with Admare on screening the molecules that we generate and the results, and the result was that we need a new molecule. And so Raven2 was launched, and that is using the AI platform known as Enki that Variational has discovered. And the task before us was a bit more ambitious, in the sense that within the space of chemistry, this concept known as chemical space, there are 10 to the 60 drug-like molecules. today, what we see is the ability to maybe harness maybe 1 billion or so molecules and screen through chemical space, but that's effectively 0% of the possible drugs that are out there for a given target, and the target here is SARS-CoV-2. So the goal is to search efficiently through chemical space in novel areas which we can't access otherwise, not through a brute force method using virtual screening or in other types of high throughput screening or experimental methods, in order to come to some good drug candidates much more quickly. Again, this is a consortium, it's a national effort. We are the lead. We are an SME. We're a very small company. We were started in September 2019. We're founded here in Vancouver. What we contribute and co-invest is the state-of-the-art generative AI algorithm and drug discovery platform known as Enki. And in addition, we're partnering with UBC. There are a lot of logos there, but it's with UBC, with specifically the Vancouver Prostate Center. And we're happy to have Erica join us as well. And VPC rapidly repurposed in order to tackle COVID. And the great thing is that they are an academic partner, as we all need. They're a research organization. Their contributions are very substantial. They're providing data. They're providing the access to the training data from the deep docking algorithm that VPC has developed, expertise, as well as a BSL-3 facility with actual live virus in an assay at UBC. So that's an extremely important secret weapon that we can avail ourselves of. And then Admare is, of course, Canada's life sciences venture. It's a not-for-profit, but they're a tremendously valuable partner in providing the expertise we need in medicinal chemistry, business development, and commercialization services. And so once that work is done all in tandem, Admare will go out and help us commercialize and hopefully license the drug for the benefit of humanity, and also hopefully so we can make a lot of money. The status today, as of April 2021, is that we've generated 42 compounds that have been reviewed by UBC, and they have particular properties of interest, and we call this batch 1, and they've been ordered for synthesis. So we're waiting for the actual samples of these novel molecules to come back, and then we'll throw them into the assays. The next phase is to go for another 100 or so compounds in batch 2, and we'll order that in May once we do the next round of training. Because we are machine learning, we require input data. In this case, it's molecular structures that we train on, and then we use machine learning in order to generate novel molecules that were not in the training set, in order to generate really good molecules that have properties that you want in a drug, such as potency. You want it selective for the target and not to bind to off targets and cause side effects. You want it to have the right proper pharmacokinetic properties, such as absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. It doesn't do for a drug to build up in your liver and kill you over time. As well, you want something to be non-toxic, and you also want it to have a variety of other properties. Using machine learning and Enki, we're able to optimize that based on the data and the expert consultations that we undertake with both VPC as well as Admare. The MedChem work will start in earnest with Admare in May, once we have the next generated round of molecules, and then additional optimization, wet lab, MedChem, and BD until the project ends in September 2021. What we're seeking here today is if there are any pharma companies or people who are looking to fill a portfolio in terms of having a good small molecule therapeutic for COVID-19, or potentially more on a broad-based antiviral for coronaviruses, we're very interested in talking to you, and Admare would be the right partners to speak with. So I'd kind of like to outline the importance of the project in the sense that Raven2, we have vaccines, and I fully hope and pray that by the end of this year, we'll start resembling a bit of normalcy, and that we'll be able to flatten the curve and reduce it. Early indications from countries with large amounts of or segments of vaccination are extremely promising. Yet at the same time, there are stories that are of the virus going out of control. But we certainly hope that the vaccines will be adopted and we'll be able to flatten the curve and see sort of a return to normalcy, hopefully. So Raven2 is really, it's about protecting the future rather than fighting the past. So by the time that even if we were able to find a novel therapeutic tomorrow, it would still take a considerable amount of time to go through preclinical development as well as clinical trials, as we all know. So really what we're trying to do is build the rapid capacity and build the experience and the infrastructure to potentially react to future pandemics, especially if they're of a coronavirus nature. And the reason for that, I'll go through in a little while. The longer that we delay starting, the later we get a drug. And so, we work very hard in generating molecules as quickly as possible. But the fact of the matter is a lot of the initial data we trained on was actually data around the SARS classic, or the original sort of SARS virus, SARS-CoV. And the fact of the matter is there's a very strong overlap between SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19. It's about 96% sort of the same. And in our specific target that we're going after, it differs even less. It differs even less. So there's only one amino acid difference in the binding pocket that we're going after. But the fact of the matter is that had we continued developing therapeutics or vaccines for SARS back in 2004 to 2006, we might have actually had a pretty good therapeutic option for COVID-19 when it started. The fact of the matter is that we also had MERS that started in about 2012, and MERS is also a coronavirus in the same sort of family. So the fact of the matter is we should learn our lesson in the sense that we need to follow through on our therapeutic campaigns to develop drugs, even if the drug goes away, such as with SARS. And the sad fact is that in 2006, funding dried up, and all of that research kind of didn't go anywhere because no one wanted to fund it. We need to learn from that and continue funding and building out the capacity to respond to coronaviruses and infectious diseases in general, because this isn't going to be our last pandemic. Of course, this is also of strategic importance to Canada. We hear time and time again how the Canadian pharmaceutical industry, has lacked the resources and the ability to respond effectively. I think there's a bit of, I think there's a little bit of truth in that. But the fact of the matter is we possess the research, the clinical expertise, the data, the facilities and capabilities to really, make a dent in the pandemic, and also to develop novel therapeutics going forward for the next pandemics. So I'd like to just leave everyone on this. This is from Dr. William Hazeltine at Harvard Medical School and founder of Human Genome Sciences. And it's that the fact is the laws of nature are not dictated by market forces. And if we wish to survive this pandemic and the next, we must accelerate the effort now and continue it even when COVID-19 is well behind us. Otherwise, this won't be the end. It's just going to be the beginning of many pandemics to come. And we're extremely grateful for the support of the Canadian Digital Technology Supercluster and the Canadian federal government, as well as support from our partners in the ecosystem with ADMARE and UBC Vancouver Prostate Center. And we look forward to being able to publish results and promising therapeutic options for COVID-19, hopefully sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Everyone else is on mute, so I'll do the applause for you, Handol. Terrific presentation. Thank you for the very insightful presentation, as well as the words of wisdom at the end of it. We certainly invite the audience to provide questions in the chat if you've got some for Handol. Maybe while we're waiting for some questions, I can ask Handol this question. It's interesting how many sort of molecules you are looking at the moment. How do you consider the scalability of what you're doing, and what does that look like over the next little while?
Well, so that's a really valuable question. I mean, one of the explicit aims of the supercluster is to encourage commercialization of risky technologies with big potential payouts. Potentially finding a therapeutic for COVID-19, I think, falls in that category. The fact of the matter is AI and the digital component is really something that's very remarkable in this situation, in the sense that using our machine learning, we're able to search through a huge segment of chemical space in order to come out with the right molecules that we need to find. But the compute element is extremely important, and we're lucky to also be supported in the ecosystem by great vendors such as AMPT that are providing resources on the GPU and compute side. But really, it's about the machine learning being applied to the domain. And we, as you can see from the consortium, we're specialists in AI. UBC, VPC are specialists in computational drug discovery, as well as having some preclinical resources and expertise. And ADMARE really is Canada's life sciences venture and able to provide everything that we need in order to create that smooth path to going from preclinical and into potentially a licensable asset. And so we feel tremendously honored. But the fact is that we could have applied this to other targets. And in fact, we are. So the fact is that COVID-19 comes around, it's an urgent target. There's a lot of data available. There are partnerships and there are funding. And really, that's what we need, all of these pieces to come together in order for us to take a bite out of this. But there's no reason, once we've validated the platform, that we can't go after other targets. And in fact, we had projects where we went after targets in oncology as a disease area, and we're also looking at central nervous system as a disease area in addition to infectious disease. So it's very scalable, Bill. Long answer to a short question. And we look forward to being able to take this platform and apply it to different targets.
That's great. And that's a good segue to Oscar's question about trying to understand what challenges you're faced with right now. And he's listed a few: investment, trust, collaboration beyond the supercluster. Where do you think are your biggest challenges going forward?
Well, so, speaking from sort of like a small perspective of our little company, is we really do need the help of the ecosystem because we're machine learning people. And it's through, interactions and collaborations with experts in drug discovery that we're able to apply AI to this domain. So where we see the problems is essentially as us building out that capability beyond this project. So that requires funding, obviously, but that also requires data and a sense of what target to go after. And most importantly, what we're looking for is the ability to scale rapidly once we validated the technology. And so really it's all about whether it's access to wet lab space or CROs, sort of at the back end of drug development, but it's also in trying to find what the next right targets are. And that is an expertise and an ecosystem issue. And it's something that we can face. And we've got great people working with us, at Variational. And there's a very supportive ecosystem here in British Columbia on the life sciences side. And so really what we're looking for is time. The biggest obstacle is that we just need to generate molecules that need to be validated in a biochemical assay in a cell line. After that, a lot of this other stuff kind of takes care of itself. I mean, I'm trivializing, but there's a lot of art to that. But we're pretty confident that if we're able to generate results, then the rest of the problems will be addressable.
Great, and it's great to have Anthony on this session. So Anthony, I think Handol did kind of reference the AMP solution as part of the machine learning platform. Is there anything else that you'd like to expand on there, Handol?
Well, I mean, we went through a pretty intense search for the right vendor and the options. We did avail ourselves of AWS. It's a very expensive option. And so it's something that, especially in machine learning, when you do a lot of training like we do, you need to have access to dedicated resources. And so we were able to find an excellent GPU based. So again, when you do AI and real AI, one way you can find out is there's this old chestnut. If it's machine learning, it's in code. If it's AI, then it's in PowerPoint. But the fact is if you ask someone, how much do you spend on compute resources? If they don't spend a lot, then they're not real AI in our opinion. So it's a very important piece of the puzzle, and we were lucky to be able to work with AMP on that.
That's a pretty good plug, Anthony.
That ought to be good for a discount, right, Anthony?
Absolutely. Okay.
I can't ask for more than that.
Okay, it's good to have Doug on this as well. So Doug had a question for you, Handol, about whether or not, I guess this is both whether and how you will access the quantum computing capabilities, including what the team as a SFU is doing. As many of you know, there's a Quantum Institute, Algorithms Institute that's been set up at SFU. And will this help in any way bring things to market?
I think the promise of quantum computing is real. So when you do drug discovery, there are many ways to access this problem and turn it over and attack it. We don't avail ourselves of quantum computing. Our method is strictly classical AI or machine learning. It's a generative model, and we're not really able to decompose it to sort of the environments and the problem types that we see some quantum computing offerings highlight. The fact is that we search through chemical space in a way that's not necessarily amenable to quantum computing at this stage. However, quantum computing can do a lot in terms of molecular dynamics, quantum mechanics simulations of the target There's a lot that can be done in terms of elucidating the target. There's a lot that can be done on the other side. Biology is massively complex, and it's exactly the kind of problem that quantum computing should address. We don't really see that much opportunity at this stage. We need to make sure that the AI works. However, later on down the line, we're very open to it. And just in case people don't know, we all actually have a background in quantum computing, so we're ready, willing, and able to embrace it when it makes sense for us.
Okay, thanks very much. We have time for maybe one other question. We have one from Hima. What are the opportunities of working with other life science hubs in Canada?
Yeah, we're very open to it. Look, what we need are targets and data, and then access to facilities. We're very fortunate in the sense that we're working with a national organization already. I mean, at Mare, with both campuses in Vancouver as well as the former NeoMed in Montreal, we're very lucky to be able to tap into that national network. However, we're very open to working with other life sciences hubs in Canada. We have a national, if not an international, way of thinking about stuff. So we don't really, and especially with COVID now, everyone's virtual, so it doesn't really matter. Time doesn't matter as much anymore, or rather, location doesn't matter as much anymore. Time zones still do. So it's a little hard for us to deal with England and the UK since the timing is a little bit off. But we're very open to interfacing with other life sciences clusters nationally and internationally.
Well, thanks very much, Handol. And as a veteran of doing business in the Far East, I'm sure time zones are overcomable in your context, but that was very, very insightful. Thank you for all the questions to our community. So the next presentation is from Cyrus Greenall and Michael Long. They're going to share their story of developing the first global platform to empower healthcare organizations to collaborate and improve the diagnosis and treatment of infectious diseases. And without a doubt, I think the COVID pandemic has really driven that to the forefront in terms of priorities. So with that, maybe I can invite Mike and Cyrus to take the stage.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. And so my name is Cyrus Greenall. I'm one of the founders of Spectrum. And I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Michael Long. And we're here to tell you about Spectrum and our project with the Digital Technology Supercluster. And so at Spectrum, our mission is to help solve humanity's greatest health challenges by bringing people and knowledge together. And the World Health Organization has identified antimicrobial resistance as one of the greatest threats that we face as a global community. And so it's estimated that up to 1 million people die each year due to antimicrobial resistance. And without action, that number is projected to increase to 10 million per year by 2050, which would make it the leading cause of death in the world. And so this challenge is what Spectrum was founded to address in 2015. And Spectrum has become the #1 point of care tool for infectious diseases. And we help healthcare providers make better clinical decisions by streamlining communication between hospitals, their infectious disease experts, and their providers. And so we work with over 300 hospitals around the world. And when COVID hit, it, of course, as everyone knows, it turned the medical community upside down, along with everyone else. And this turmoil was felt most acutely by frontline healthcare providers. And one said there was no guideline about how to manage these patients, who to test, when to test, what to do after you test. This was a story that was repeated by nurses, pharmacists, doctors from city to city, country to country, all around the world. And so why did this happen? What were hospitals doing to help their providers? So, what we observed was that, hospitals and infectious disease experts, they were facing overwhelming challenges trying to support their providers. Information was changing rapidly, and there was so much of it that it was often conflicting. And one of our customers described it as drinking from a fire hose, where they had to digest new information as it came in, convert that information into a guideline, and then distribute it to each of their providers. And they had to do that daily as new information became available. So this process, if you can imagine, was just exhausting for the hospitals, for their infectious disease experts. And the consequence was that the providers were not getting the information that they needed. So seeing this firsthand, we realized that Spectrum would be the perfect solution for helping with this challenge. So we work with our hospital partners around the world to use Spectrum for COVID-19. And Fraser Health was one of the first organizations in the world to develop point of care guidelines for each of their providers. But we saw that all these hospital organizations around the world were working in isolation and struggling to support their providers. And so no one was able to benefit from the work that Fraser Health produced. So each hospital was essentially working in isolation. So we reached out to these hospitals across the country and offered Fraser Health's guidelines as a template. And in several weeks, half of Canada was using localized versions of these guidelines and got them into the hands of all of their providers. So this question became evident to us, what if we could lift the barriers between all of these hospitals? What if we could see beyond our own unique perspective in each institution? What if we could make the entire spectrum of knowledge visible? And so this truth that became so apparent to us was that the future of clinical knowledge is collaboration. And we've seen, I think everyone here has probably observed in the last year that we are so much stronger working together, and that knowledge can no longer be siloed. It can no longer be limited to the walls of each hospital. So, how do we make this happen in the real world? Well, we gathered a coalition of experts from, some of the greatest institutions in the world to help us shape this solution. So from Sick Kids in Toronto and Fraser Health to the United Nations and World Health Organization, from UCLA to Geneva, we've been able to attract hospitals of all sizes from every corner of the world to support this initiative. And with, of course, critical support from the Digital Technology Supercluster, we're building what we call the global clinical network for infectious diseases. And so this is the first platform that will empower healthcare organizations to collaborate and improve the treatment of infectious diseases. So where we saw these hospitals working in silos, what we imagine in the future is removing these barriers between every healthcare organization. And this network will be founded on these principles of being open, collaborative, and human-centered. So now my colleague, Dr. Michael Long, will show you a bit about how we imagine this network working.
Okay. All right, thanks, Cyrus. So to build the global clinical network that fulfills these principles and requirements that Cyrus just described, we're building features that will allow infectious disease experts to share guidelines, to keep those guidelines automatically up to date, to communicate with one another, and a number of other features as well. But today we're only going to talk about 3. And the first being a feature that we're calling the library, and I'll like to show you that now. So this is Spectrum's clinical content management system. It's where our clinical partners manage their infectious disease guidelines, pathogen and antimicrobial monographs, their local resistance data, and so on. And all of the information that is managed by this platform is packaged up and sent out to our mobile apps so that it can be used by frontline healthcare providers directly at the point of care. This is also where infectious disease experts will access this library function, and it will allow them to search and copy clinical content that has been created and shared by other members of the network. And so our content team has gone through and created curated collections that we believe to represent some of the best and most interesting content on the network. But of course, you can search for anything. So let's do a comprehensive search for COVID-19 guidance. So as you can see, and Cyrus mentioned, we've got clinical partners all over the world. So let's filter this a little bit to just show us clinical guidance from Canada, and for treatment of adult patients. So scrolling down, you can see that, so this Fraser Health guideline is the one that Cyrus referred to earlier. It was updated recently, so let's check that one out. So on the left side here, we've got a live interactive preview, and this resembles what the guideline would look like on the healthcare provider's mobile device at the point of care. This particular guideline from Fraser Health has got information on infection prevention and control, diagnosis, testing, but let's follow this clinical management and treatment arm of the algorithm. So let's say I'm treating a critically ill patient. At the moment, Fraser Health is recommending dexamethasone, monoclonal antibodies, VTE prophylaxis, and not remdesivir at this time. If I want more information about any of these therapeutics, I can just, it's one click away. Here's dosing information for dexamethasone, for example, and dosing information for other corticosteroids in the event of a shortage of dexamethasone. So, of course, there's a lot more information in this guideline, that, but I like this guideline. And if I wanted to copy it like all these other organizations have, it's a single click copy process. And now that guideline is available in my own guideline collection. And using the content management system, I'll be able to make edits to this, local customizations to make it applicable to my own local population, my local patient populations, the drugs that might be available in my hospital's formulary, diagnostic methods that might be available to me, and so on. So early access, or sorry, early feedback on this system has been overwhelmingly positive. So for example, this is feedback that we got from IWK Health Center in Halifax after they used the system to copy COVID-19 guidance from the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So once you've got a guideline copied, as we said, you can, we want to keep that guideline up to date. And in fact, we want to make it almost automatic that that guideline stays up to date. And so as I just mentioned, any organization on the platform can copy guidance from any other organization on the platform. They can make local customizations. And then in the eventuality that the original source material is updated, we want to be able to allow them to quickly and easily adopt those changes while maintaining their local customizations. It's effectively version control for guidelines. And then finally, communication. So communication is at the heart of everything that we're doing with this network. We're building features that allow infectious disease experts to communicate with their colleagues at other hospitals. Also tools that allow them to communicate with frontline providers at their own hospital, and also tools that allow other stakeholders, such as public health officials, to participate in the network. So as I mentioned, the library and a number of other features that we didn't get a chance to talk about are available now to our clinical collaborators. And we're on track for a wider public rollout in the fall. So I think it's worth taking a step back here and revisiting the scale of the problem that we're facing. So to meet and overcome some of these massive global health challenges like COVID-19 and antimicrobial resistance, our goal is to deliver clinical collaborative change that is just so significant that it becomes newsworthy even outside of the medical profession. And in order to do that, we're seeking collaboration with the largest and most diverse coalition of clinical partners that we can muster, as well as actively seeking collaboration with all of the other diverse stakeholders involved in clinical knowledge translation. So if you would like to become a member of the network and help shape its design and have early access to some of these features, please do reach out to us. We'd love to talk. Thanks.
Fantastic, Mike and Cyrus. It's a great presentation. Really alludes to the spirit, I think, of collaboration that has marked a turning point, I think, on how the global health organizations have started to collaborate. So I think we already have a number of questions on the queue. So maybe we'll just turn to them right away. So let's start with a question from Avivala. So what advice can you share with those of us trying to build a similarly large-scale partnership network in the health industry and health systems? What are the critical steps you took to successfully bring such a large consortium together?
It's a great question. So, when we started this, it was a small, pilot project in Calgary's hospitals. And Spectrum has really grown organically. And I think our focus has been on two things. One is like delivering an amazing product that people love. And two, building genuine, friendships and partnerships with all the hospitals that we work with. So we even are reluctant to call all these hospitals that use our platform as customers, because really we're partners with all of them. We're very much invested in their clinical outcomes. And I think this relationship has motivated these early customers to tell others. So most of the institutions you saw on that list, they were through referrals. So it wasn't us really actively marketing our platform, is through them telling their colleagues in neighboring institutions. And in the last year, we saw Spectrum double in terms of our market share and growth. And again, it's largely because of just having a product that people love, and fortunately, they seem to enjoy working with us.
It's amazing how word of mouth does help to spawn that network effect that you're talking about. Can you just describe for us, just as a corollary question there, Cyrus and Mike, if someone, we have a number of officials from various health organizations that are part of the audience to hear, if they wanted to be part of the network, I know you gave some instructions, Mike, about they could just reach out to you, but what really is involved in getting set up and really activated in their jurisdictions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we'll talk about clinical partners first there. So these organizations largely have antimicrobial stewardship committees and programs. And what we do then is take those resources that have been already developed, and our clinical content team would then adapt them. You saw a little bit of what an algorithmic guideline that's optimized for mobile devices looks like in that demo. And so what we do is, we convert all of those things over to an algorithmic format, and then the hospitals themselves can use the content management system to approve all of those things and set it live. So it's really kind of a collaborative mission to adapt all of those resources.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Mike. So Salima has a great question. She's actually asking about identifying how you overcome some of the privacy related issues, especially around personal health data and whatnot, and what considerations you had to have in your solution.
It's a great question, one that comes up a lot. Luckily, we don't collect or store any personally identifying information. It is not possible to enter anything like that into the platform. How we approach that from this clinical decision support standpoint is it is possible to enter patient factors, for example, elevated heart rate, or age, or other factors that the patient may be exhibiting. They're not tied to any type of record or anything like that. But then those drive clinical decision algorithms that spit out an outcome that is tailored to that patient, but we don't actually import any information about them from a record or anything like that. So we're somewhat lucky in that respect.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess in some respects, Hema had a follow-up question about whether you anonymize the data, but it sounds like you actually, the input process is probably what nullifies the personal aspect of this. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Why don't we turn to the question from Oscar in terms of whether you are seeking other partnerships from a digital standpoint, and if so, what they might be.
Sure, I can take that. So, I mean, what we've effectively built is this platform that allows any type of, as Mike said, any type of content and data to flow through to providers. So we think of Spectrum as a conduit or as a hub that's at that mobile access for each provider. So from a digital partnership perspective, I think any industry member or company that is wanting to deliver data, guidance, or protocols to providers, I think that's the ideal type of partnership for us. But we're certainly, if anyone's interested, to reach out and we can kind of explore different ideas.
Thanks for that, sir. Go ahead, man.
Really quickly, one of the partners that we have as part of this consortium was Unity, as you mentioned, and their supercluster project was involved in collecting and analyzing and exporting epidemiological data. And so that type of surveillance data, I think, could plug into the platform pretty nicely and provide a really interesting resources for ID experts to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Would you guys be interested in data visualization? Sorry, Bill. Will you guys be interested in data visualization?
Sorry, I'm not clear.
The question was, would you be interested in data visualization technology?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That we have a project ongoing about that too. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure who asked that question, but give us an email.
I think that was Oscar.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. So Ian had a question, good comments about the project. How scalable is it? And as you add more guidelines and more disease categories, how will users navigate the vast knowledge space that's there? I guess this is the rising addict problem where you have more and more knowledge, and the question as to how you actually sort through it all.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're actually, so we've received a lot of interest from different healthcare organizations to actually expand into other specialties of healthcare. So that's something that's going to be occurring for the next year or two. But I think for us, like, personalization is going to become more and more important. So right now, the experience for every healthcare provider is largely the same when they enter their version at Fraser Health or whatever institution. So it will become more personalized to that provider and the types of patients that they see. The second thing is search. We have a search functionality that's quite popular, but that's going to become more and more important as the number of guidelines increase.
I also think the goal, as Cyrus said, of being a very collaborative network will kind of lend itself to scale, right? So the more content you have, the more valuable it becomes. It's actually easier to onboard new individuals because there's just such a knowledge base there to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Terrific. Well, I don't see any additional questions, but that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Cyrus and Mike, for leading that conversation. And they shared some contact information with everybody. So please do get in touch with them if you're interested in partnering with them or getting connected to the network. So with that, it's my pleasure now to kind of turn to the next segment of our session and demo day, is to allow for you, the community, to share any updates that you might have for the community writ large. So this is our rapid fire segment. And as you kind of think about whether there's been something that's been happening with your organization, a project that you're involved with, or just kind of general reach outs that you'd like to do to with others on this call, just signal by entering something in the chat window, and we will queue up whoever would like to share an update. So why don't we start? I know that we had sent out with the registration a few questions, and I think we had some volunteers. So Anthony Brown, I think you had a 1 minute update for us. So I'm going to open up the mic to you.
Okay, sorry, just going through the unmuting process. Thanks. This is a great presentation. Really pleased to see the work that you guys are doing. It feels good to be a member of a group that is actively participating in dealing with this pandemic and dealing with the impacts of it. And so, good on everybody for taking advantage of that. From an AMP perspective, I think, the obvious earlier plug pointed out that we have, recently been really investing heavily into artificial intelligence and machine learning platform technologies. We went through a fairly extensive process with Variational AI in testing different technologies. Not only, we took a look at whether ROCm and AMD might be a fit, which it turned out it wasn't based on their specific workload. We then went through the whole new Ampere set of cards from NVIDIA, tested out various different functionality with NVIDIA on each one of those cards, as well as how to carve them up and how to optimize the infrastructure to run the machine learning algorithms more efficiently. And I think that was a great process. And so from an app perspective, I think, anybody who's looking at machine learning, doing it as efficiently and cost effectively as possible, might want to reach out. And at the very least, we're very happy to bring on people to the platform to do testing and just see how it goes. And of course, we'll contribute that to whatever project needs it. So yeah, I think that's probably the first big area. And lastly, we're seeing a lot of adoption around various different new forms of digital content creation, including virtual production and volumetric capture. That's also a big focus for us. We're working with a bunch of the universities in developing technologies around that piece. And I think that from a digital perspective, the new volumetric technologies around virtual production and so on are going to be pretty transformative for digital content creation. And considering, Vancouver's legacy in those areas in both video games, animation, and visual effects, I think it's something to keep an eye out and watch on what we'll be doing on that front as well. So thanks very much for the opportunity for the update, Bill.
Thanks very much for sharing that, Anthony. I think we also have, Ahmad Farouk from Crosswing had volunteered an update. Ahmad, are you on the line? Okay, perhaps Ahmad is no longer on the line. So if anyone else has an update, just feel free to kind of raise your hand. Oh, Brenda, thanks for volunteering. Brenda, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to hear the updates from this morning, and Handol, I believe we first met through CDL even, so that's fantastic. So short update, Relentless. I'm the managing partner of the Relentless Venture Fund, and with everything that's happened, the unfortunate reality that has boosted digital health tech opportunities related to COVID is with respect to remote patient monitoring, telehealth, and the attention finally around prevention. So we're working to build capacity with a new fund at Relentless, and want to share that we're looking for pipeline opportunities in digital health. And I think one interesting update to share around a BC-based company is Canary Medical. If you haven't followed them, they're one of the existing portfolio companies for Relentless, and we're expecting by July for their new product launch of an embedded sensor and total knee replacement, first smart orthopedic on the global market, partnered with Zimmer. And it's an example of the type of company where Relentless looks to actively manage mobility, heart disease, diabetes, and mental health currently, and we're extending to all chronic conditions with the new fund. So this is really a great community to be a part of, peripherally and witnessing the growth of these projects since the launch. So great, really celebrating the demo day. And
thanks so much, Brenda.
Bill being all gussied up.
It's great to see you, Brenda. Thanks for sharing an update from Relentless. It's vital that we have venture partners that support the journey of so many startups and entrepreneurs and SMEs in our category. And it's great to see the revitalization of life sciences space over the last 18 months or a couple of years. So why don't I turn, Salima, thank you for that update. It's fantastic to see that you switched teams for a little while, and that you've offered up your support for anyone who's looking for support programs with the Government of Canada. So Salima has been a true champion of the ecosystem here in British Columbia, and will continue to be that in her new capacity within the Department of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. And so Annika just asked a question, and this is perhaps as we get close to the hour, is really an opportunity for you, each of you that's participating in a project. If you would like to participate in a future demo day, and if you would like all of us to dress up in tuxedos for this 10 to 11 time slot, we would certainly welcome you to email us. You can send it to info@digitalsupercluster.ca. Our plan is to do this every month, the last Wednesday of each month, really in celebration of the many projects that are reaching their finality conclusion, to share the outcomes and the kinds of things that they can do to further that, and maybe invite additional collaborators and customers to be part of the journey. So our next session will be May the 26th. So mark your calendars, and we'll of course be sending you updates as we go. And in the meantime, both on behalf of everyone in the Supercluster community, I want to thank again Handol, Cyrus, and Mike for fantastic demo presentations, and their contact information. If you need it afterwards, email us, and we'll be glad to put you in touch. If you haven't already experienced our member portal functions to try to find contacts within it, I certainly encourage you to use our community portal to find access to partners and other contacts within the broader ecosystem. And with that, I want to thank our colleagues at Inventa who helped to produce this show, and Annika, as always, for being the real engine behind the success of these events. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.